afternoon. I'm Nicole Versansky in our 19 News Now digital studio. Joining us in just moments will be Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. But first, as we do every day around this time, we want to get you caught up with the latest numbers on COVID-19 in our state. Here's a look at those brand new numbers from the health department. Close to 27,000 cases now in Ohio. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen an increase in close to 600 cases. 1,581 deaths. Hospitalizations have gone up in the past 24 hours by 73. We are now at 4,791 hospitalizations in Ohio, and those ICU admissions now at 1,277. And I want to bring in right now Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Governor DeWine, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
I want to start from the very beginning. March 3rd, the Arnold Sports Fest in Columbus canceled. It's a major sporting event, international sporting event that brings in tens of thousands of people, but it was one of the first major events in our country that was canceled. And a lot of people thought, Governor, what is this governor doing? Acting alone in many ways. I want for perspective to start here. Take me back to how you came to that first major decision for Ohio and what it felt like to be acting very much alone.
Well, it was a gut-wrenching decision because, as you pointed out, really no one in this country had made a decision like that to close something. And, you know, I worked with Mayor Ginther and with their health director and my health director, Dr. Acton. And the more we looked at it, the worse it looked. 60,000 spectators. Most of them staying for 4 days from 80 different countries and in very close proximity to each other for that period of time. And even though we did not have, I don't think we had any cases, or if we did, we just had a couple that we knew about it. It just made absolutely no sense when we consulted with health experts who said, look, this is going to just really kick off huge spread in the state of Ohio. So you're right. I think people thought we were crazy. It was a tough decision. It looks now, as we look back, like kind of a no-brainer decision, but it was a tough decision because, you know, a lot of people look forward to the Arnold. A lot of people look forward to going to it. It brings in a ton of money for Central Ohio. So not an easy decision, but it was the first of a number of decisions that we had to make.
And let's fast forward to now. I mean, your approval rating in handling COVID-19 is the highest in our country, 83%. However, now that we're entering this new reopening phase, Governor, you have a lot of people saying, whoa, slow down. You yourself said it was a gamble in some ways, but people fearful. And then you have people protesting, on the other hand, saying that you never should have shut or stayed down in the first place. So would you have done anything different?
Well, first, I'll tell you a story about the popularity poll. My wife, Fran, heard that, and she said, just remember what goes up comes down. And, we've done this long enough. And so if you're governor during a pandemic like this, you can't look at the polls. You can't worry about it. You try to listen to people and try to take people's thoughts into consideration. But ultimately, the buck stops with me. I have to make the decision. Some people think we move too fast. Some people think we've not moved fast enough. What I've tried to do throughout this is just be as brutally honest with the people of the state of Ohio as I can. And so we made these decisions to open up because we felt we couldn't hunker down forever. We had to get the economy moving forward, but we owed it to the people of Ohio to do it the right way. And so we put together working groups for everything. Let's just take hair. I obviously need a haircut, but we put barbers and people who have hair salons, and really that's their trade. That's what they do. And we put them in groups, and then we brought in health people, and they all worked together to come up with best practices. We did the same thing with manufacturing. We've done the same thing with restaurants that will be opening. So what we want to be able to assure people is that when they step into a jewelry store, or they step in and buy flowers, or wherever it is, that the best practices are in fact being followed in that place of business. But I have said it's a gamble, and look, it's a risk If we don't open up, it's a risk. If we do open up, whatever we do is a risk. And what's important now is that Ohioans continue as we open up and people move around more and sort of get back to more normal life, that Ohioans remember that that virus is still out there. It's just as deadly today as it was 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
So,
We've done a
Governor,
good job, but we got to be really careful.
What if cases skyrocket? Will you shut things down again?
Well, we hope that doesn't happen, and it's really in our hands, all of us collectively, 11.7 million Ohioans, how well we do. I mean, look, we're asking people. This is a mask that my wife Fran made for me, so we can kind of have fun with this, and we can think of wear your sports mask, your Browns mask, or Indians, or whatever. But it's really so important. We got to keep the social distancing, the distancing. But that second layer of wearing a mask, and you're really not wearing it for yourself. You're wearing it for the other guy. You go into a grocery store and you're buying groceries and you're walking by someone who's stocking shelves. Everybody now in retail, everyone is wearing a mask. And so when you wear a mask, what you're saying is, I care about that person who's stocking the shelves. I care about the person who's checking me out because I want to protect them as well. So, we kind of say as a slogan, we're all in this together, but we really are all in this together because what each one of us does impacts other people.
Nursing homes. There are a lot of people talking about, hey, if I'm able to wear my mask and go into a grocery store, now go to a pool, potentially. How is it not okay for me to be able to go into a nursing home and see my family member who I haven't seen for weeks now? It's a pretty tough pill to swallow. How do you explain that to them?
Well, I'm not sure you do explain it very well in the sense that it's gut-wrenching for them. I can only imagine if I have a loved one in a nursing home and I could not go see them. But let me take you back to when the decision initially was made. That decision was the unanimous recommendation of every health advisor we had, every doctor that we talked to, who said, look, nursing homes are very vulnerable. They're vulnerable because people in them are vulnerable because of their age, because of their medical condition. Once it gets inside a nursing home, it can really spread. Tragically, we have seen this. A significant number of our deaths have occurred in nursing homes. So that decision was made, I think, it was the right decision to make. Look, I've gotten letters from people, and they break your heart. I mean, I've letters that said, look, my father died, and he died in a nursing home, and I couldn't see him. And I think the reason he died is, frankly, because you shut the nursing homes down and wouldn't let people in. So my heart goes out to everyone who has someone in a nursing home. We're taking a look at this. I've asked a team of experts, I'm not the expert on this, but to take a look at this and say, is there some way that, we can open that door a little bit so that people can get in and have some contact with their loved one and not see that loved one maybe deteriorate because that person does not have that personal contact. So I can't make any promises, but we've turned this over to the people who really understand the dynamics of this. But I understand the personal dynamics, and the personal dynamics is it's got to be very, very gut-wrenching and very, very tough. But we also have the obligation to protect people's lives at the same time.
But arguably, couldn't that be a more controlled environment, a more one-on-one environment than, let's say, going to a pool and interacting with all those different people?
No, I don't think so. And the reason is people are in the nursing home. They do not leave. Once it hits, we've seen the spread. I mean, just take a look. If you want to see something that breaks your heart, take a look at the number of people that have died in nursing homes. So that is, people ask me, Mike, what do you worry about every day? I worry about people in a congregate care setting, whether it's a nursing home, assisted living, or wherever it is, because once that gets in there, it is just very difficult to slow down. Now, look, we now have more testing. We've paired up every nursing home with a hospital. We have the ability now to go in and do a lot more testing once someone is showing signs in a nursing home. So we have a better ability to protect people in the nursing homes. But it still is a leading cause of death, and that is across the country. That is not anything that's unique to Ohio. So the spread within a nursing home is something that we are very, very concerned about. And so when you make a choice to let someone in, it may be for every great reason in the world, but there is a risk connected with that. And what we have to do is just simply, try to balance those things out.
I'm going to switch gears a bit and let's talk about education and our kids. As a parent myself, Governor, it has been incredibly difficult. I'm sure I speak for so many parents out there. In this time of working and homeschooling, or just homeschooling in general, we are anxious, we are nervous about what is coming this fall. Give us your best estimate of what we can expect. Will kids go back into the classrooms, and what will those classrooms look like?
Well, Fran, I have a number of grandchildren, most of them in Ohio, and so that's an issue that we can relate to, and we certainly understand. I think you have to go back and let's look at why the decision was made initially to close the schools. It wasn't so much, we're always concerned about our kids, but the more we learn about the COVID-19, the more we know that generally kids are fairly safe from it. They may get it, they may spread it. But the real concern is that when kids go to school, they're in a classroom with 25, 30. They're intermixing with a bunch of kids at let's say, for lunch. And so you got one kid who comes in, and this child, let's say, has no symptoms. But we know with this COVID-19, a lot of people are walking around with no symptoms, and they never even know they have it, but they're spreaders, and they do, in fact, have it. So let's say you have one child comes in, and now you got 30 kids in a classroom infected. You got more kids infected in the cafeteria, and then they all go home. And then they infect their families, and then there may be a grandma living with one of the families, and she gets sick. So that's why we did it, to slow that spread down. Now, as we look to the fall, we don't know exactly where we're going to be with the virus at that point. But what we do, all of us collectively do in the next few weeks, is going to determine what August looks like and what September looks like, and how widespread this COVID-19 is, and whether it's ramping back up and going straight back up, or whether we've controlled it. And so what we do collectively is going to determine whether or not, how we go back to school in the fall. I talked this morning to a number of superintendents from Lorain County, and I talked to them about this, and the goal is to go back to school. The goal is to get kids in school in the fall. That's what we want to do. But no one can make that commitment yet until we see exactly where we are in the fall. But what schools are doing a great job. They're doing the best they can. Teachers are doing amazing jobs. So are parents. But what they are doing is they're planning for the fall and trying to figure out, how can we protect kids as much as we can? How can we have the distancing in a classroom? How can we maybe not have all these kids intermingling with each other, and maybe go to lunch, for example, in a number of different shifts? There's all kinds of things that schools are looking at in order to try to figure this out.
Well, then in the more short term, let's talk about Memorial Day. A lot of Ohioans they like to make plans to leave the state, to travel outside the state. The state travel ban doesn't end until May 29th. If you do the math, those dates don't exactly jive. So what about that state travel ban? Do you have any plans to stop that anytime soon?
We're going to look at that, but again, I just, as we have these discussions, I just have to keep reminding everyone, this virus has not gone away. There is nothing different today than before. The only thing different is we've shown, Ohioans have demonstrated, that we can do what it takes to do, what we have to do to keep it down. But now that we're all coming back together again, there's a grave risk that it will, in fact, go up. And so traveling, we can all envision a scenario where you travel and it is safe. You get in a car and you go, and you don't interact with too many people. But we also can come up with scenarios where, that's not what happens. And you intermingle with a bunch of people from someplace else, and then you bring that back. So we're certainly looking at it. We don't want to discourage people from getting out and enjoying themselves or going to see a family that lives in Pennsylvania or someplace like that. So we're taking a hard look at that.
When do you expect more concrete dates on things like that travel ban? And people have been asking about casinos. They've been asking about Cedar Point. When do you think we'll get that kind of information?
Yeah. Well, we've had a week where we've opened up virtually everything, and we've tried to open things in logical order. So when you talk about Cedar Point, nothing more fun than spending a day at Cedar Point, unless it's a baseball game, but that's personal choice, mine. But look, Cedar Point's fun, and we hope to get to the point where it can open. But the real danger is when you get large crowds of people intermingling close to each other, and that, again, significantly increases the spread. So we want to do this right. We want to be careful about it. We want to try to get people back to work. We want to try to get people back into whatever their normal routine is, but they're going to have to be very, very careful. And I guess the final thing I would say is, if you're in a situation where you're over 65, 70 years of age, you got to be particularly careful. If you have diabetes, if you're obese, if you have any kind of health related issues, you need to be particularly careful, because we now know that statistically you are the most vulnerable, not the most vulnerable to get it. Everyone's vulnerable to get it, but the severe ramifications if in fact you do get it, and you're taking a much bigger risk than somebody else who does not have that situation.
Well, Governor, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I wish we had more time. I know you have to go, but again, we thank you for your time today answering some of our questions. When will we expect to see you again? Monday for your daily press conference?
We'll be back Monday at 2 o'clock, for our daily press conference. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Governor Mike DeWine.
Thank you.
And this has been a special broadcast, our one-on-one interview with Governor DeWine. Certainly, there were so many questions that we had hoped to get to, specifically regarding the budget, regarding churches. A big day today for bars and restaurants. Unfortunately, the governor only had a limited amount of time, so certainly we didn't get to all those questions, but hopefully we got a little bit more perspective and a little more answers for you, clarification in some cases, specifically for nursing homes, and some of those questions that you had. Again, we will be breaking all this information down for you in our later broadcast on 19 News. I will be seeing you in just a minute here. You can watch the interview also in its entirety on our website at cleveland19.com. I will see you in just a few minutes on 19 News at 4 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you then.